All right, everybody, welcome to this session about Agentic AI red teaming. I will be doing this session together with Ken Huang, and we will introduce us to you shortly. But first, let's talk about Agentic AI. Quite the buzzword these days, and for good reason, right? It represents a powerful vision, smart systems that interact with each other and the real world to actually make things happen. And it's not a brand new idea. I remember studying agentic systems back in the 80s, actually, reading a book called Backdoor Systems. But now with the rise of generative AI, the possibilities feel endless. And a lot of the organizations that I work with are dealing with this. And I get a lot of questions about agentic AI, especially how to, gain some trust in these systems, how to test them, and how about the security of them. And I'd like to go today through some of them together with Ken, because Ken and I recently collaborated on the Agentic AI Red Teaming Guide. And this was a collaboration between the Cloud Security Alliance and the OWASP AI Exchange, also involving many other experts. My name is Rob van der Veer. I am Chief AI Officer at Software Improvement Group. I founded the OWASP AI Exchange. I have a long history with AI, 33 years, involved in standardization, and would like really to collaborate with other initiatives such as the CSA, which we've done successfully, which was a lot of fun. And we did that together with Ken. Ken, how about yourself? Can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes. Thank you, Rob. It's exciting. I think talking about the red teaming agentic AI. My name is Ken Huang. I'm AI security research. Wrote a few books on the AI and generative AI security. I co-chair AI control working group at the Cloud Security Alliance. I also co-chair the organization responsibility working group within Cloud Security Alliance. That group actually, thank you, Rob, for your support. We co-published, joined the force, right? This Agentic AI Red Teaming Guide. We got a lot of response back from the community. So exciting to have this fireside chat with you.
Indeed, it's amazing all the things that you do, Ken. I almost suspect you would be an agentic AI, but you turn out to be a real person that's quite productive. It's really an inspiration to me, to be honest. So let's go. The first thing people typically ask is, what is the big deal? What makes red teaming agentic AI, so testing, security testing, agentic AI, fundamentally different from testing traditional LLMs? Ken, so what will be your take on that question?
Yes, so that's, I think, certainly a good question to get started. The LLM, like if it's just model testing, red team is quite established discipline. Many frontier providers, they have really good practice to do the prompt engineering or prompt injection, all this different of red teaming techniques, but it's just to the model. Model itself does not have the tool, cannot really execute the action to effect the changes or kind of take the next step actions based on what has happened. So it's more complex. So we are dealing with more complex architecture and a more complex interaction. That is really different. And there's no established discipline yet for red teaming the agentic AI. This is actually, we see the needs at the Cloud Security Alliance and the OWASP AI Exchange, and we joined the force and also leverages the cross-industry input. Many people participated, thank you. We come up with like a red teaming guide, focus on the 12 threat categories and give a cookbook like what's the requirement, what do you do, have to do to test with, right? So so it's different, and one is really the architecture, the planning of the agent, the autonomy, right, and the complex of the complexity between agent to agent communications and also the dynamic identity that is used. That is really different from traditional identity. Of course, this is really very deep. Like we can have another 2 hours to discuss about the identity use in agent and how we can even red teaming it, right? And also the non-trust boundary. Like in the older days, you have red teaming, you just have a trust boundary. You can just test this part of it. If you are talking about agent-to-agent communication, it is cross boundaries with the Google A2A Anthropic MCP. This is complex, right? And you have to make sure you test each part of it, right? And also the non-determinism. The agent can act really depends on the environment. It can eventually have what you call as emerging behavior that you cannot predict. If you have never tested, it's hard, right? But if you tested, you cannot really 100% still sure, but at least you cover some base. So yeah, there's a lot which is make it different.
Yeah, so I wrote down it's complex. The autonomy plays a role here. The trust boundaries, the fact that you're dealing with systems from different types of platforms and maybe even organizations, which of course create a lot of authentication and authorization challenges. It seems to me that the agentic AI really amplifies a lot of these security problems, which is why everything is becoming more important. I think this is because the big deal of agentic AI is that it is a big deal for attackers, right? So you have the super complex dynamics, it's unattended, it has consequences to the real world, a big attack surface. So for adversaries, it's a super attractive target, a lot to be gained. So their motivation is high, which means that developers and security folks need to be at the top of their game to counter this. And what I've seen is that with people creating agentic AI systems, it's quite attractive to take shortcuts and by doing so create security issues because there's so much benefit to gain. Developers want to build in flexibility, like for example, let the agent create its own code and then the agent can immediately run it. I'm sure you've seen this. So what could possibly go wrong? And for example, when you work cross-platform, forget about authorization and authentication. Too much work. Let the LLM handle the authorizations. Seems like a great idea. A lot of flexibility for developers, but when you do tests, you run into all kinds of issues because developers took these shortcuts, of course, to create the best type of results with agentic AI systems, but also, yeah, falling for that tendency to take these shortcuts. In fact, today somebody on LinkedIn said to me that future enterprise architecture is going to look very different. And I agree to that because normally in enterprise architecture, we have a fixed way of how systems interact. Now with agents, it's basically a bit of a mess, which is the advantage, this flexibility. But this turns enterprise architecture from sort of a city block map into an aerospace where everything is basically possible, creating a lot of headaches for us security folks. And let's try to make this more specific. And I'd like to give a stab at the question, which threat vectors are then unique to agentic AI? And I see a lot of mentioning memory. So why is memory suddenly an important attack factor that comes into play? In simple LLMs, memory also stores context, but nobody's really worried about it. Why is it now suddenly a thing with agents? And I see two reasons. There's more to gain, as said, so attackers go a step further in trying to manipulate a system. And memory is important for the behavior agents because it contains goals, intermediate results, findings, plans, and if you control those, you have power. And I think this illustrates what you said, Ken, that this is a different beast because it's much easier to control memory typically than pulling off an attack like data poisoning to control the behavior of a model. Can you mention other types of attacks that we should be worried about in agentic AI?
Yeah, so we list 12 different categories. One is really memory poisoning, like you said, the in-context learning. This is the model itself, but eventually manifested with the agent, right? It can cause damage. And also with the agent, it can use the external memory, such as the vector database. So you can actually do the indirect prompt injection to put some malicious data in the vector database. And if you scan it or use that, it will be doing something which cause it in failure mode. Example, like if instead of just search for resume to find a good candidate, it actually trying to sift out something else like privacy data. Yeah, the other thing I think is really one of the top item we put in the red teaming guide is really the control hijacking, the access control, right? So there's a different, the problem currently how agent assume identity. One is like too restrictive. It does not really can do anything automatically, right? Another is really it assume every like assume one person's identity, like if it's HR personnel, but it's not task specific. If it asks it to do the recommendation for resume again, since this HR personnel has access to salary data, it can also retrieve the salary data, but this is not in scope for the task, right? So this is too overly permissive. And but another way is if you look at this, if it is trying to say, okay, this is good, you need to send an email to the hiring manager to say, okay, we can hire this. So what is your opinion? And then you need another maybe identity to send the email, right? And then it has to assume another person's identity. So this is really different from our current IT system that you can just impersonate, have the DB connection, right, to do this. And we, of course, we have the paper published. It's kind of academic paper, right? Saying zero trust. We should not trust anything, right? So it has to be ephemeral, the identity. It has to be um, dynamic, right? And it has to be task specific, not really like session specific. You should not grant the identity, say, with this session, you can do whatever you want. And so say with this session, with this specific task, you can do what, right? Then have to be recycled. Actually, I just got an email from client. They said, how can we deal with all this agent identity? We have like thousands of agents. They need a different identity. If we're using HID, each identity is license cost, right? So how can we deal with that, right? So this industry still need to figure this out. And of course, from the red teaming aspect, we still need to test like how this identity is used, right? How can we assume? So this is just access control. There is other thing like the goal manipulation, right? You can using Microsoft called it crescendo attack. So it's a multiple turn prompt injection, trying to gradually like lead the agent to do the things that its original like objective was not supposed to do. It's still very hard to defeat against it. So yeah, there's many. So I think we
A lot to think about. So I imagine that if you're a really good agentic AI red teamer and you see this system and you notice the way that authorizations have been arranged in the system, you can, in many cases, I think, stop your test and go back to the development team saying, guys, I'm sorry, I can continue testing, but you really should do this in a different way. Especially because this expertise is now so rare. I certainly hope that red teams and developers and pen testers are going to collaborate more to share this knowledge. There's a big need for that for sure. You talked about autonomy, the dynamics, the goal-directed behavior of agents, and they also have long horizon decision making, right? You can set them out to do a task like keep an eye on the state of the art and let me know if anything changes and send me an email. This is very different from the good old, input output AI system, AI model situation. So what do those dynamics mean for testers? How does that change their work?
Yes, so the testing is become more complex. Manual testing sometimes is hard. Uh, we actually in the red teaming guide we list some of the example prompt and steps uh, that kind of can be used as a recipe. But what we do is actually we try to see if we can have some automation using AI to AI. So I, I may, as follow up to this video, have the demo. Yeah, I kind of vibe coded based on our guide to A2A agent, like a Google A2A agent, trying to red teaming it using multiple turn prompting injections. The current, like if you see a lot of posts in the LinkedIn or in Hugging Face, that's most single turn prompts. Just say, okay, I ask agent to do, is agent doing it okay, or it's in like attacks success rate, ASR, right, is good or not. Um, that's not sufficient. You have to have a multiple turn, like based on the response, you need to do another attack, right? So this is, I think it's different. And also the difference is for the tester is to understanding the complex architecture. The agent can using a RAG database, can call API, can use different tools, MCP server, right, has different tools, and it can call another agent. So if you don't understand the architecture, just treat it as a black box. That's maybe not enough. Just say, okay, this is the agent. It exposes API. I just hit against this endpoint. I'm done with my testing. That may not be good enough, right? So I think the guide that we have actually we kind of trying to dissect the different component of what you should test with, right? That's why it's really popular. People is actually trying to use it if possible. Uh, one another thing is very important, like how do you measure you are successful in the red teaming? There's no golden benchmark yet, right? There's a benchmark for the general GAIA called GIF. This is more for performance of the agent, like how it is good in terms of agentic behavior. So it's called a general AI assistant benchmark. But in terms of security benchmark, there's no industry-wide recognized benchmark yet. There's a lot of research, of course, on this area, and some may coming up become the standard. Uh, and how, like one thing is how do you judge if it's attack successful? So majority of tool we see, of course, it's good also using the LLM as a judge, right? Using the model itself to say if it's successful or not. So this is good in terms of the give you automation, give you a little bit of scale, but still you need human in the loop to say if it's successful or not. So yeah, I think it's raising the bar for the people to perform the red teaming. The knowledge you need is understanding of what is agentic AI. We have a book on this, just a shameless plug, right? Published by Springer. Um, and also, how do you do the red teaming? How do you do the reconnaissance, right? How do you do the actual testing? How do you benchmark it?
There's no free lunch in which you can ask AI to test the whole thing. And I think that's an important insight for organizations that want to go ahead and, try to create agentic AI system, because with this great power, I think comes great responsibility in order to get sufficient level of trust in, what can go wrong, because we connect these systems to everything. And you talked about HR systems, right? We're going to connect it to everything because it's so powerful. But it also creates a responsibility to get the testing right and get the people that are able to do this. If you look at organizations scaling their red teaming efforts, the organizations I work with, they typically have separate teams because the AI red teams require different expertise than the pen testers. And I think that agentic AI really calls for more collaboration for pen testers and AI red teamers to collaborate. Normally they work in their own, little realm, but now everything is connected to each other. So agentic AI
Yeah.
things are increasingly hard to separate, and it's all about scenarios, dependencies, interactions. And I believe the only sensible way to deal with this is to let the teams work together. What would you say to organizations that want to, scale their AI red teaming efforts?
Maybe take example of Microsoft as they publish what they do, right? So they have a responsible AI kind of organization, but as they work within that, it has red teaming, but they do have the business input. They also have the even have the legal sometimes involved, and they have the Microsoft research, right? So it's a multiple team sport, and especially like red teaming, sometimes this scope can be enlarged to cover some business context, right? Some of hallucination, which is really the business context. So the functional team certainly need to be inside. So yeah, so in order to scale it, is really one is using automation as much as possible, but has human in the loop. Another is really have the multiple team thinking about this as a team sport. And another very important thing I think people actually ignore it is should the really red teaming early and the red teaming often. If you develop your applications and you say, okay, now it's we are ready to ship, give you 2 weeks to red teaming it, it's too late. Right? So it's more like when you have basic functionality, you red teaming it, and you add some majority functionality, you red teaming it internally or externally, right? So if you do it, then you eventually you can scale this effort.
I like that. So people often tend to see red teaming as you need to have sort of an almost finished systems for the team to look at it. But this is not the case. There's a bunch of people with an attacker mindset who have really, tried to understand the different attack vectors and what can go wrong. You can present even a design to this team and let them, threat model it and come up with some insights into, for example, how you've implemented identity and access management, and maybe make you even completely overhaul that before you start building the system. Yeah, so early, even shifting left with AI red teaming is probably the best advice.
Some of this is really the traditional cybersecurity practice. It's not changed because of red teaming. I think this is still golden rule, like you said, shift to left. It's more like pertinent for agentic AI now, but it's still, yeah, some of the very good old practice.
So you talked about automation. Um, Organizations need to build on tools, frameworks, testing infrastructures. To be honest, I have a hard time staying up to date with everything that is coming out here because it's such a fast-moving topic. What do you know about this Ken, regarding tools and frameworks? Where can you point organizations to?
So what are is in this agentic led teaming that we do some of mapping in terms of NIST AI IMF. But if I will really want to put it in coherent way, is we really the very good framework is really NIST AI IMF. It's applied to the AI. I think it's also applied to agentic AI. It has the map, measure, manage, and a gov, right? So in terms of map, is really trying to map the agentic AI system with the different vulnerabilities. This is really the exercise of threat modeling. And Cloud Security Alliance, I published a blog post called the Agentic AI Threat Modeling Guide. many banks I know they use it now. It's called the Maestro threat modeling framework. It's going to 7 layer. Yeah, from the foundation layer until the ecosystem, right? So each layer to see, and I have the tool. I will share with you soon. It's you can basically put the description of your agent system. It will generate a threat report for you. So I will share with you soon. Yeah.
So Ken, you talk about the OWASP AI uh, vulnerability scoring system, right?
Yeah, it's coming up this week, and the idea is really trying to. It's possible to measure the risk, right? But as a reference score because the risk is really hard to measure. That we have to agree. But at least we have kind of a reference score. People can use it and apply to their own environment, right? So that's the goal of this vulnerability scoring system. If you look at the manage and the govern, it's really the whole kind of framework that's including the red teaming, right? And how do you continually kind of given the scoring system, given the threat modeling, how do you deal with all this threat? And so I think this is a framework that is very good. We should follow. And yeah, we will have some demo coming up soon.
Looking forward to that, Ken. Another thing that we collaborated on is the Agentic AI Red Teaming Guide. Came out recently. Um, it was a collaboration between the Cloud Security Alliance and the OSP AI Exchange, and many other great experts joined in. What is in this guide, and also how did this initiative start?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So the initiative actually started even last year. Some of cross-industry effort, people from different organizations, they see the agentic AI threat issues. So people putting some of the framework to deal with it, the candidate framework, what we call, trying to donate to OWASP. Um, and there is some back and forth discussion. So our guide is initially based on that. Of course, we kind of during the whole process of review it, enhance it. It's changed a lot, and we put the red teaming uh, uh, recipe on top of it. So I really would like to take this opportunity to thank you, Rob, for your leadership, and also Yuvraj, who participated, Arunesh, Benazi, and many others. I may miss some of the name, but they all participate. They uh, provide the great insight and contribution to this guide. So yeah, thank you very much. And after that, we got lots of positive response for this guide. So hopefully people can use it, and we will have a tool coming up soon so people can leverage it. So hopefully I'll make it as open source. So it's closed source. I'm still thinking about how to right how to make it open source or something. Yeah.
Wonderful. What I really appreciated is you can reaching out to us to the exchange to collaborate. You don't often see that. You see, in most cases, organizations trying to come up with a deliverable on their own. You seem to believe firmly in wider collaboration. Can you say more about your motivation for extending to other institutes and groups to work together on something, because it doesn't make it per se easier, right?
Yeah, I think it's very important that different open source community don't repeat the work, right?
Mm.
So this is like a cross organization. I also was sitting as the core members in the Gen AI, OWASP Gen AI LLM project. And if what they do, I contribute a lot, like very heavily in their work, the top 10 for LLM, and also the threat modeling for multiple agent systems, their data security. I also contribute, and we also reference in our CSA's work, right? And so vice versa. So I think we do. It's a lot of hard work to take up for myself, but I think it's important. So we do not repeat. Well, if we would repeat the work as a open source community doing, it will give mixed signals. So sometimes it's okay, but sometimes it's hard for people to follow. So if we actually collaborate, co-publish, then it's good, right? So we aligned. Like during the co-publication process, we have people actually review it, voice their concerns. We make the changes, right? Not just from the different OWASP organizations. We have also other organizations participating in, which is good. And then we have a kind of voice that people think, oh, yeah, this is certainly a collaborative work. This is good for us to follow, right? And of course, we cannot make everything 100% like correct. That's hard. Uh, but with this collaborative effort, we can improve the quality. I do see a lot of good feedback that we incorporate in our red teaming guide and make this guide much useful and practical and also aligned with different organizations.
Yeah, I totally agree. In the end, it is about creating clarity for the practitioner. And if there are 100 things to look in and they're all, different and using different terminology. So I think this is a good moment to wrap up also because of time. Thanks everybody for joining this session. It was a lot of fun, Ken, to do this together, this fireside chat. Everybody, we'll see you in the field. Ken, any last words for the session?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Rob and OWASP AI Exchange. Of course, Cloud Security Alliance for hosting this for us. And Agentic AI certainly is taking off. This year is the genesis, and it will play out within a decade or even long time. And we're early in this, and the red teaming is early. We published this guide. We hope you can use it. If you have any questions, reach out to Rob and myself. You can just Google search our names, and if you want to put AI in it, and you can locate it to us, and you can talk to us through LinkedIn. Thank you, everyone.